A second shot at death. A botched execution leaves a condemned inmate alive and the state with a chilling question. Should they try to complete the sentence once again? Imagine, if you may, being strapped to a gurney. The final appeal's exhausted. The execution proceeds, but something goes terribly wrong. The procedure is halted midway, leaving the inmate very alive, a harrowing ordeal for all involved. The question arises, should the state be allowed to try again? On one hand, we have the arguments for a second chance. Supporters of capital punishment argue that the original sentence stands. The inmate committed a heinous crime and the state is simply carrying out the legal punishment, no matter how many times and attempts it takes. A failed execution is just a technical glitch, and the sentence should be completed. Closure for victims, families. For families who have lost loved ones, execution can be a grim form of closure. A failed attempt can reopen old wounds and prolong their suffering. Granting a second attempt ensures that the sentence is fulfilled and brings finality to the ordeal. But on the other hand, we have the arguments against a second chance. Some will say, very cruel and unusual punishment. The opponents argue that subjecting someone to a near-death experience and then putting them through it again is barbaric. The psychological trauma of a botched execution can be immense, and forcing them to endure that terror twice is cruel and unusual punishment. Risk of further errors. A failed execution raises serious concerns about the competence of the execution team. Is there a risk of another, even more gruesome? The state should focus on ensuring humane executions, if they are to happen at all, rather than rushing for a redo. Sanctity of life. Some argue that surviving an execution is a sign of divine intervention or a higher power's will. Taking a life after such a close call goes against the fundamental respect for human life. Indeed thought-provoking, I admit. Imagine knowing the day you will die. Imagine knowing the exact time it will occur. Imagine knowing exactly how it will occur. And that day comes, and you go through the experience knowing that when a short period of time comes, you will be dead. Whatever experience, horrible or not, the person goes through during this time, it would be no different from if the execution did go through. Did they suffer without dying? I believe they did. Because the experience up until the point the execution was botched will be real. As I've said, very interested and thought-provoking, one has to admit. But for some, this is the actual dilemma. There have been cases where the execution was botched, and everyone experienced it. Should that be the end of the sentence? Or should there be a second and third and fourth attempt?